What if a table is not straightforward and easy to be handled by hypothesis? The next option is graph. What is graph? To get to understand what is called graph, let us first learn the meaning of Cartesian space or Cartesian plane. So what is Cartesian plane? What is Cartesian space? That takes us to lesson number 2 of this work. The meaning of Cartesian space. Please follow me as I briefly explain the meaning and the application of Cartesian space.
What you see on the screen is the Cartesian plane. The plane was invented in the past to help people of those days locate their hidden treasures, the treasures that they hid in the field. Anyway, we are not going to be fully involved or concerned with the history of the plane. Instead, we should be concerned and we should focus on why this plane is being used at this point. So you ask, why are we talking about the Cartesian plane? We want to make use of it because in today's world, it has found its application where and how. In today's world, we use this plane to show a comparison between the changes that take place in the independent variables and dependent variables. The plane, as you can see, has lines, 4 lines that move in different directions, 4 different directions. This line going towards the right, this one going towards going upwards, and this going towards the left, and this going downwards. All of the movement or direction starts from this point. This point is called the origin. And what does the origin indicate? Since I said earlier that this plane will be used to show a comparison between the changes that take place between the dependent and independent variables, this point corresponds to a position from which all changes take place. That is to say, if a value of a particular variable has to start changing, it is assumed that it has to start from the simplest or the lowest point, and that lowest point is taken as 0. Therefore, 0 is a figure used to indicate the origin, the point where we take it that variables begin to change their values. Now, apart from the origin, which we're just in here, we have about 4 lines here. This line moves towards the right. This line moves towards the left, both from this central point called the origin. This line moves upwards. This one moves downwards, also spanning from the same origin. It is also acceptable to use a central 0 to span through the 4 lines, so that with that we simplify the origin and its identity. Now, it is important that we name these lines. This line that runs up and down, is called the y-axis. In this case, the axis is that straight line. And then, why is it called the y-axis? Don't forget that y, as we said earlier, indicates all dependent variables. Therefore, anytime we want to show the dependent variables, we write them on this line. Later, we see a difference between this line that runs from 0 or origin upwards and that which runs from the origin downwards. But both lines that meet here at the 0 joined together are called the y-axis or the dependent variable axis. Then, what about this line that starts from this origin, moving both leftwards and rightwards along the same straight line? That one is called the x-axis. The x-axis. It goes left and goes right. Both joined together make up what we call the x-axis. Why do we call it the x-axis? It is because, as we learned earlier, x refers to all variables which are independent. Therefore, if we want to show changes taking place in the independent variables, we write such changes with figures along this line. Now, we have known that this vertical line is called the y-axis, and this line, which is horizontal, is called the x-axis. Let us now concentrate on the differences between the line that runs from origin towards the right and that runs from the origin towards the left. By convention, anything that goes from this origin towards the right is taken to be a positive change. Any change taking place from this origin towards the right is taken as a positive change. In other words, all numbers showing changes in variables which are independent, which indicate that the variables changing are positive, are written on this line towards the right. Later, you will see an example that illustrates it. And then, that is why it is called the x-axis. Later, I will show you the four axes or the four subsections of the two axes. This one that runs this way is going to be used to indicate changes in the variable which are negative. If you like, you can also say that all numbers which indicate having should be on this line, and all numbers that indicate owing should be written on this line. The same thing is applicable to this vertical axis, this y-axis. All positive numbers are written from this 0 upwards, while all negative values of the y are written on this axis that runs downwards. Because of that, we call this axis that runs up the positive y-axis, and this that runs down the negative y-axis. So far, we have seen that this plane has paths, and each of those four lines that span away from the origin also has its own name and application. Let us now look at how these variables are named. Alright, this one, as you can see by the left, is the negative x-axis. And then this, which you see on the right, is called the positive x-axis. And then the one, which is down here, is the negative y-axis. And then that, which is up, is called the positive y-axis.